So a couple of hidden things that ended up getting added to the game that they never decided to tell us. One is the Banshee is added to the video game, which is insane. The second is all of the self buffs for Bard are now 240 seconds in duration, 4 minutes. All of the group buffs are still 120 seconds, but with some resourcefulness gear, the self buffs are up to like 5 and 6 minutes each, which severely reduces how often people got to play those ridiculous songs for everybody. Kind of cool. But the main point of this video is to talk about the Banshee and how the Banshee works. So for those of you that don't want spoilers, don't watch this. For those of you that want to understand the Banshee's mechanics and how to beat her and what it is that you need to look for in order to beat her, that's what this video is for. Okay, so I am playing this from the perspective of a Warlock, and I apologize. I understand the Warlock is basically cheating. I was joined by So Bad Strange and the end boss this morning to go through the boss fight. Banshee is one module south of the center module of Ruins. You can get down there, no problem. If you end up killing both Banshee and the Spectral Knight, there is a center treasure room that I will show you after this boss fight, so stick around if you end up wanting to see that, where you can see like all the stuff that's in there. But on to the boss fight. The Banshee is undead, and all of her attacks are dark magic damage. So talents like Anti-Magic, Iron Will, or gear with magic resist on it are great for this fight. Also, because she's undead, damage reduction from undead talent for Warlocks also ends up being beneficial. On fight start, you'll notice that there is a whole bunch of spirits floating around the room. This causes a 12-ish% deafen to your character if you end up colliding with one of them. The spirit then disappears, and a new one spawns from the floor in its place. This debuff stacks up to 8 times, lasts 10 seconds per stack, and each stack falls off in order. Meaning if you have 3 stacks, it will drop to 2 stacks after 10 seconds, and then 1, and then so on. At 8 stacks, a full set of stacks, it will render your character completely deaf. Protection from evil reduces this debuff duration, along with other debuffs from this fight. Her first attack is a series of 5 shadow nipples that she spawns in the air. Each one fires a shadow bolt at a point on the floor near where you are standing at the point in time that the cast begins. So move out of the way. Her second attack is what I call a whisper rush. She will disappear from the center of the room or wherever she's standing and then pick a person at random, whisper the word you, and then rush at them. If she hits them, she knocks them backward.
She was taking damage. I holy lighted her 3 fucking times.
Oh. Her next attack is a leash, where she does this like spirit fingers looking deal and then ends up sending out a leash at someone, and if it hits them, it ends up drawing them into her after doing a little bit of damage and causing a small heal debuff. She will also spawn this large, very slow-moving, shadowy ball, this large shadow orb that picks someone at random inside of the boss arena and then slowly follows them around. If this orb touches you, it does its unspeakable damage. However, the orb is also considered undead still, which means it reacts to a lot of cleric skills, Holy Light, and Purify, and also is bonkable. However, if the orb explodes next to you, if it's very close and has like a 1-meter splash, it will do large amounts of damage to you on that splash. So you want to make sure that you're damaging it at long range. If you're a rogue, for instance, I probably wouldn't be trying to stab it with a dagger. She will then turn into a miasma periodically, which is like a cloud of bugs that looks like it's just going to chase you down. It moves in a straight line based on where you were standing when the animation begins, so just strafe out of the way. Much like her other skills, it will do unspeakable amounts of shadow damage to you, and you obviously don't want to have that happen. Banshee changes phases at 75, 50, and 25% HP, or at least that's what we think she does. Each phase change is the same animation, but a slightly different effect. The first phase change that she does, she will writhe around and then ultimately do this very, very large scream. The scream is unavoidable. It fills the entire room, and everyone is hit by it no matter what. The first scream that she does causes a 100% debuff to all of your healing for 60 seconds, so you cannot be healed for a full minute. Cleric protection from evil does reduce this debuff duration, though. Her phase 2 scream causes a 60-second silence.
There's a silence now.
And then finally, her phase 3 scream does an unspeakable amount of shadow damage. We estimate somewhere around 300. You can see how even with my damage reduction talents, it chunked away my health that much. The secret to beating this fight is in the spirits, the ones floating around the room. Every time you pick up one, while it deafens you, at 8 full stacks, it makes you completely deaf. That means that when the Banshee screams, ultimately it renders whatever scream that she does completely useless. Now, if you have one stack less than 8, it will still end up stacking whatever the debuff is on her onto you. So you need to have 8. Also, when she screams, she will wipe off whatever stacks you do have. So you have to get all 8 stacks in between phases. The idea here is that if you have 8 stacks, especially in the 3rd phase, it will do 0 damage, or it will apply 0 debuff effect. So while you're fighting her, before you push the last phase, make sure that everyone has 8 stacks of the debuff. This also means that if you're a cleric, you probably don't want to run protection from evil, because you, instead of having 10 seconds, now only have 5, and it will be nigh impossible to make sure that that scream doesn't end up chunking you out. Otherwise, your only other option is to, if you're a cleric, for instance, try and heal through it, or just mitigate the damage in other ways. Maybe spamming potions and bandages, or chugging beers if you're a bard. However, in High Roller, I feel as though this would probably not work, because her damage and her HP pools would be increased, and would probably be that much more difficult to pull off. In Normals, though, probably a viable strategy. When she ends up near dead, she will fall then to her knees, which will end up marking the final phase. Now, during this phase, she spawns a whole bunch of those shadowy nipple-looking deals and fires them in rapid succession at various targets in the room, in this case, End-Boss being the only one. This happened 7 or 8 times. We kind of didn't really count, but it looks like it's 8 times. At the end of the 8th time, she kind of just surrenders herself to the powers that be, and you walk inside and just cleave her in the head, and she's dead. Oh, dude, she actually goes to her knees and you finish her off? Jesus. And well, that's the whole fight. But I also promised that I would show you the treasure room, so here you go. Upon killing both bosses like you would normally see in Goblin Cave, killing Troll and Cyclops, it's the same type of mechanic here. You end up killing both the Banshee and the Spectral Knight, and it will end up opening up the double doors in the middle of the map. So heading through the Spectral Knight's room here, you can see that we're able to open up the double doors in the middle and head downstairs. Now, while the middle room looks cool, it doesn't have anything amazing or new and interesting. In the center, there are 4 pillars, 4 pedestals that end up having different pieces of gear on them. There's a couple of ruby silver nodes, one there and then one to the left here on the other side of this pillar in the corner. And then there's a couple of lion's head chests that are, for whatever reason, nested inside of each other, which I thought was kind of funny and probably unintentional. So you have this first one here, and then upon looting it, I realized, or Sobad ended up telling me that, oh, there's a second one, and I turn around and there's another one to open right inside of it. What's the funniest part about this is that once I opened it, it actually collided with the lid that was already open and only opened halfway. So that was kind of funny. Now, we don't know if there's more than just a couple of ruby silver nodes in there. Maybe there's, obviously there's going to be more hits to those ruby silver nodes if you're inside of a high roller version of this. But in the normal version, maybe there's only 2. There could be up to 4. We have no real idea because this is the first time that anyone has seen it. Now, that being said, it isn't the most amazing loot room in the world, but it's also the first level of a 3-level dungeon. And when you consider there's 2 magnificent chests there, and then the random spawn ones that could be in crypts, and then obviously you have the guaranteed one if you end up killing the boss in Inferno, it ends up stacking up pretty well in terms of being able to collect some halfway decent treasure. Plus the fact that you will see epics and maybe even a legendary sitting on those pedestals from time to time doesn't really hurt. Now, in terms of boss loot and boss drops themselves off of Banshee, she doesn't drop anything crazy or amazing or different. It's the same type of loot pool that you would see from like Troll or Cyclops or Spectral Knight. Same loot pool. Her unique drop is a sonnet, like a short prose play on a piece of paper. Now, I don't have an image to show that to you, but that's her unique item that drops. I don't think, at the moment, I don't think that there's any crafts for it, but I will, I guess, double check and leave you something in the comments. But that's the entire fight. She's really fun. She's not crazily difficult. She's very much like MMO mechanic style of fight where having to collect those spirits and stuff to negate damage and make sure that you time things out right is very, very much like World of Warcraft MMO-esque in nature, as opposed to the like heads-up battle Elden Ring, like Dark Souls kind of fight that you would have from Spectral Knight. Very different, but both still very, very cool. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for this video. If you ended up enjoying this or any of my other content that I end up uploading along the way, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really, really does matter. Otherwise, you can always catch me live over at twitch.tv/Onepeg, where we're doing stuff like this every single day. And as always, if neither one of those work for you, then I suppose I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for lending me your eyeballs, everybody. I appreciate you all so very much, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.